Imagine this. 480 Marines are trapped in a valley in Sangin, Afghanistan, ammunition running low. The enemy occupies 3 ridge lines. Every muzzle flash is a death sentence. Radio comms jammed, helicopters grounded. And then a voice came through, cold and metallic as steel. Hold position, await orders, follow protocol. But protocol doesn't feel fear. Protocol doesn't know that a bullet can sometimes cut through silence and save hundreds of lives. And somewhere, on the edge of that burning valley, through dust and smoke, a woman was preparing to break that rule. A female sniper, the one they used to mock as dead weight. She quietly chambered around and pressed the sling tighter against her shoulder. No one knew that she would change the fate of an entire battalion in just a few minutes. Her name was Riley Monroe, her call sign, Ghost 9. The morning sun scorched the Redemption base like a furnace. Helicopters tilted their blades skyward, lifting off and leaving clouds of red desert dust swirling in the air. While the rest of the unit laughed over breakfast, trading jokes to fill the silence of routine, in the far corner of the range, one Marine sat alone. Small, neat, silent. In front of her lay an M40A6 sniper rifle, perfectly aligned on a tarp. Her hands moved slowly, cleaning every steel groove as if tending to something alive. No one noticed her. No one spoke to her. To them, she was just the quota sniper. The token female meant to make the gender equality report look good. But to Riley, the rifle wasn't a weapon. It was breath. It was a heartbeat. It was the one rhythm in the world she could trust. While others killed time with cigarettes and music, she killed time with numbers. In a small olive-green notebook, Riley recorded everything: wind angle, humidity, elevation, bullet drift, all arranged with the devotion of a hymn to precision. No one had trained her for this. No one had taught her about the valleys of Afghanistan, where the wind burns like fire and the air hums with danger. She had trained herself through discipline, through long nights under the dim red glow of a tent light. And in the left breast pocket of her uniform, once scored a perfect record at Camp Pendleton's sniper range. No one knew that Ghost 9 was a name whispered through generations of sharpshooters, a legend born from impossible shots taken across nearly a kilometer of distance. All they saw was a quiet woman cleaning her rifle in silence. But fate, as always, finds the quiet ones. When the storm of gunfire swallowed the Sangin Valley, the world would finally see what Riley Monroe had spent her whole life preparing for. The woman they once called useless would become the phantom on the ridge, the only one who heard the call of duty and answered it with absolute precision. Before the battle begins, the ghost is already ready. Morning at Redemption Base was always as noisy as a market buried in sand. The clatter of steel trays echoed from the mess hall. Laughter mingled with the smell of instant coffee and gun oil. Young Marines swapped stories about the night before. Dumb jokes, pointless bets, harmless trouble. At the farthest corner of the yard, Riley Monroe sat alone, her back against a cracked concrete wall, her M40A6 stretched across her thighs. The sun's harsh rays sliced through the air, carving blades of light across the ground. She pulled a soft cloth through the rifle's barrel, checked every screw, and cleaned every part with the precision of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Her eyes revealed nothing, only pure, silent focus. To Riley, this wasn't maintenance. It was meditation. Every motion was a prayer to precision. 2 privates walked by, towels slung over their shoulders. One smirked. "Look at her, the quota sniper. Must be polishing her toy." The other laughed. "Yeah, as long as the paper targets don't shoot back, she'll live a long life." Neither thought she could hear them, but she did. She always did. As usual, Riley said nothing. She wrote another line in her notebook. Southwest wind, 4 nautical miles. Humidity 38%. Reaction time 0.6 seconds. She turned insult into data, isolation into discipline. In the company briefing room, Riley always sat in the last row when reports were submitted. She didn't speak. She didn't interrupt. Her job was to check the comms equipment and take notes according to protocol. The commander rarely looked her way, except to hand her documents or ask for fresh radio batteries. She had become the shadow of the base, present but unseen. Sometimes she switched on the red light in the small room beside the armory when everyone else slept. On her desk lay a map of Afghanistan, hills, valleys, and elevation lines redrawn by her hand in soft pencil. Besides, her weather log shows wind speed, temperature, and altitude variances. She studied every ridge, every wind current, as if memorizing the face of someone she loved. One night, a duty sergeant passed by and stopped at her door. "Monroe, you're still—" Because on this basis, any sign of pride could be mistaken for arrogance. She didn't defend herself with words, only with results. She knew that in the military, silence can be the best armor. While others flaunted medals and scars, Riley displayed patience. While they trusted muscle, she trusted sightlines. And while they placed faith in orders, she placed hers in her maps. Every note in her notebook, figure and wind drift calculation was a fragment of an equation she had quietly solved for years. She knew someday that equation would have to be proven. She didn't know when, but was certain that moment would come. And when it did, she'd be ready. "I don't need them to believe in me," she once wrote in her notebook. "I just need one moment, one shot. They can't deny." Inside the silent tent, wind hissed through the canvas roof that night. Riley sat alone. The red light gleamed off the matte black surface of her rifle. She placed her hand on it gently, as if touching something sacred. Her father's dog tag tapped softly against her chest with every breath. Maybe he could hear her. Maybe, somewhere, he was smiling, because she had kept her promise. Then came dawn. The siren wailed. Over the loudspeaker, the officer's voice thundered, "All units, assemble for Operation Sangin Valley." Marines rushed to strap on gear, laughing that today's mission would be a walk in the park. Riley looked down at the map in her hands, her eyes narrowing. She saw what they didn't. A valley shaped like a clenched fist, a corridor of death carved by the ridges they had dismissed. Her chest tightened, and for the first time, Riley Monroe knew. The equation she'd spent years writing was finally about to be proven. That morning, the briefing room was packed. A wide projection screen displayed the map of Sangin Valley, red contour lines spreading like veins across a field of ochre. The air was thick with the smell of strong coffee and brass dust. Officers turned pens in gloved hands while a laser pointer traced over ridge lines and small grid-marked villages. Colonel David Hensley stood at the front, voice gravelly and firm. "This operation is straightforward," he said. "We move into the valley along the central axis, establish a control point, sweep both flanks, and stabilize the area. Intel reports show light resistance, just scattered local militia. We go in, clear it, and get out. Nothing complicated." The wave of quiet laughter rippled from the back. "The picnic trip, Colonel?" someone joked. A few others nodded, the flicker of confidence brightening their sunburned faces. At the very last row, Riley Monroe sat still, her notebook open across her lap. Her fingers traced the contour lines, elevations, ridges, narrow passes. She saw what the others didn't. Strips of land barely wide enough for a convoy, slopes that offered perfect machine gun sightlines, and an approach route with almost no escape path. She inhaled slowly, then raised her hand. "Colonel," she said quietly, but clearly, "this valley isn't stable. The surrounding hills form 3 concentric ridges with only 1 ingress and 1 exit. Our formation will be trapped in a funnel if enemy fire is positioned along the eastern and northern slopes." For half a second, silence, then faint laughter. A young lieutenant shrugged. "You giving the colonel a tactics lecture, Sergeant?" Colonel Hensley turned, his eyes cold, the kind of authority that doesn't invite correction. "Monroe," he said curtly, "your job is comms and logistics support. Terrain analysis is an intel and strategy business. Understood?" "Yes, sir," Riley answered evenly. She closed her notebook. The snap of its cover echoed dryly in the still air. The private elbowed his buddy and whispered, "Quota snipers teaching strategy now." Snickers spread through the room, like tiny blades. The red light from the projector cut across Riley's firing angles. On the last line, she wrote in a slight slant, "If they enter, the only hope is someone climbing high and firing from outside the box. 1 bullet, at the right time, could save them all." She sat still. The air conditioner's hum above her sounded like a whisper of foreboding. That afternoon, the convoy rolled out of the base. Dust clouded the horizon, mingling with the searing desert light. 480 Marines, confident, joking, singing as the trucks rattled across the cracked earth. Riley stood behind the barbed wire fence, eyes following the fading silhouettes. The grind of tires against sand scraped through her chest like metal on bone. When the last vehicle vanished behind the ridge, the wind rose again, flinging sand across her uniform. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself. The map already said it. They're not passing through. They're walking in. That night, the base was unnervingly quiet. No one noticed Riley sitting alone in the comms room, eyes fixed on the monitor tracking the unit's signal feed. Tiny lights moved steadily across the digital map. Everything looked fine. But to Riley, that kind of calm wasn't peace. It was the pause before the first explosion. She exhaled, leaned back in her chair, one hand resting on her notebook. On the final page, 4 words were written in small, slanted script, clear as warning fire. Silence is never harmless. 5. That afternoon, Sangan Valley burned under a searing gold sun. The wind came in scorching gusts, dragging ribbons of sand through the air like smoke. The battalion's armored convoy crawled along a dirt road between 2 barren ridges. Engines roared. Laughter crackled through the radio. Easy chatter, light jokes. The last careless words before fate closed in. Inside the command center at Redemption Base, Riley Monroe sat at the back, eyes fixed on the comms screen. Tiny blips pulsed steadily across the digital map. 480 lives advancing deeper into the valley's heart. Outside, everything was eerily still. No artillery, no gunfire, only wind and sand. The kind of silence she hated most. Then the first signal blinked out. 1 vehicle vanished from the map. Riley leaned closer, checked again. 10 seconds later, another dock disappeared. The radio cracked to life, a voice breaking through static and panic. "Alpha 3 hit a mine. We have casualties. Requesting medical support." No one in the room moved. The commanding officer frowned, his voice like metal. "Hold position. Get accurate reports before responding." The tech officer muttered, "Could be an accident." Riley said nothing. She stared as a 3rd signal flickered, then died. And then, the first gunfire. A long burst from the eastern ridge. Seconds later, an explosion from the north. The monitor flared red, flashing engagement signals across the screen. In moments, the radio became a choir of chaos. "We're pinned down! Incoming fire from 3 directions! No exit route! Requesting immediate air support!" Riley shot to her feet. "It's an ambush," she said, voice rising. "They've set up crossfire from both ridges. The formation's trapped in a funnel." Colonel Hensley turned sharply, irritation flashing in his eyes. "Sit down, Sergeant. You're not authorized to speak in a command session." "Sir," Riley pressed, "if we don't act now, the entire formation will be wiped out in 10 minutes. No response. Only the radio screaming. "We lost contact with Bravo 2. RPGs firing from the west. We can't move!" The air in the room grew heavy. A captain tried to sound composed, reading from the field manual. Protocol. Riley stared at the image. Her hand tightened on the desk. "Give me that gun position," she said quietly. "We can't engage Monroe," an officer answered. Protocol doesn't save anyone." She reached into her collar, pulled a minor key from her chain, and unlocked the weapons cabinet in the corner. Inside, her M40A6, cleaned, ready, waiting. She slung it across her shoulder and tightened the strap. Colonel Hensley's voice cracked through the tension. "Sergeant Monroe, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Riley's reply was steady, unshaken. "Exactly what the map warned us about." She stepped out of the command room. No one stopped her. A few turned to watch, their eyes mixed with fear and disdain. They thought she was throwing her life away. But Riley wasn't reckless. She was calculating, as always. Outside, the wind howled, carrying sand and smoke from the valley. She walked, each step heavy but certain. Her father's dog tag tapped softly against her chest with every heartbeat. Behind her, the radio still screamed, "They're going down one by one. We need to evacuate now. No visibility, no exit." Riley didn't look back. She knew if she hesitated, it would all end there. She pulled her sling tighter, adjusted her helmet, and whispered, just loud enough for the wind to carry it. "If no one shoots, then I will." From a distance, Colonel Hensley's trembling voice barked through the comms. "No one leaves the base. That's an order. Hold position. Wait for air support." But Riley Monroe was already gone, vanishing beyond the concrete walls into the red wind of Sangan Valley. Each step she left behind pressed deep into the sand, a trail leading toward the horizon, where the sound of gunfire raged like a coming storm. The wind in Sangan cut like blades. It screamed through the rocks, whipped across Riley's face, slicing her skin until it bled. The midday sun tore the sky into a blinding sheet of white. Below her, the valley burned. Machine guns thundered like rolling storms. Explosions echoed from 3 sides. Black smoke plumed upward, merging with dust and the fractured cries on the radio. Riley crawled low along the slope, her calloused hands gripping each jagged stone. Her M40A6 bounced against her shoulder with every breath. She had climbed for half a kilometer. No orders, backup, or guarantees. Only instinct and belief. Every time her boots slipped, she remembered her father's voice. "Steady your breathing. Don't fear the height. Fear makes your hands shake, and a trembling hand sends the bullet astray." Finally, she reached it. A narrow rock ledge, half hidden behind burnt grass and crumbling dirt. From there, she could see everything. The entire valley lay exposed, a sea of chaos. Armored trucks burned. Marines sprinted between smoke and shattered ground, dragging wounded brothers through streaks of dust and fire. From the ridges, flashes burst, enemy gunfire, thick and relentless. Riley lay flat, drawing in a deep breath of desert heat before exhaling slowly. She opened her scope. The world shrank to a circle of glass and steel. Her first target came into focus, a machine gun nest perched on the eastern ridge, cutting across Bravo Company's retreat line. She gauged the distance by sight, 900 meters. Wind from the west, 4 knots. She adjusted the turret, each click sharp and deliberate. Finger on the trigger. Breath held halfway. Crack! One soft, perfect sound. A heartbeat later, the machine gun went silent. The gunner dropped, lifeless, tumbling off the rock. For a moment, the valley froze. No one knew what had just happened. A voice whispered through the radio. Who? Who's providing overwatch? No answer, only wind and the rhythm of her pulse. Riley cycled the bolt and chambered the next round. The scope drifted left. Them all. On the ridge, Riley moved like a ghost. Fire, roll, reposition. Each shot is a decision. Each decision is a life. She didn't kill out of hatred. She fired for mathematics, for distance, wind, and the curvature of survival. One machine gun nest, gone. A command group, gone. A sniper aiming at the medics, gone. Each impact is clean, precise, and final. Her sleeve slid up with each movement, revealing a small tattoo, the Marine Scout sniper insignia, a scoped rifle framed by laurel branches. Beneath it, the words her father once engraved, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Down below, the radio came alive again. Ghost 9's up there! Hold formation! We've got a chance! Ghost 9? That's Riley Monroe? A young Marine gasped, voice trembling between disbelief and awe. No way! They said she was just logistics. Another, crouched behind a rock while reloading, muttered, If that's logistics, then God's running artillery. The battalion began to pull together, lines reforming, rhythm returning. Amid the chaos, a shout echoed through the radio net. She's clearing a path! Follow the corridor, Ghost 9's carving! Riley kept firing, round after round. Sweat and dust streaked her neck in salt lines. She no longer felt exhaustion. Only heartbeat. Only trigger. The world had narrowed to breath and bullet. Each shot she fired laid another stone on the path out of hell. One by one the gun nests went silent. One by one the enemy fell. One by one the Marines began to move, dragging the wounded, sprinting through open fire toward the rescue zone. Through the radio, a gravelly voice broke in. This is Trident Actual. Ghost 9, you're holding the whole valley. Stay on your mark. We're coming in hot. Riley didn't respond. She just adjusted her scope, locked onto a final target. A soldier crawling toward the landing zone, grenade launcher raised. She squeezed. A spark. Then silence. The helicopter touched down safely. Medics rushed the wounded aboard. The comms filled with shouting, laughter, tears. All 480 accounted for. Nobody left behind. On the ridge, Riley stayed prone, her eye still in the scope. That evening, Redemption Base lay beneath a haze of settling dust. The sun sank behind the hills, spilling a dull, molten orange across the sky, the color of scorched metal. Rescue helicopters landed one after another, their landing skids screeching against the sand. Hundreds of Marines stepped out, uniforms torn, faces smeared with soot and ash, helping one another down. Blood and sand mixed underfoot, forming that familiar scent of the battlefield, the kind only the living recognize. No one shouted, no cheers, only the heavy silence of men who had walked out of death's shadow. Riley Monroe entered the base behind them. The last sunset light stretched her shadow long and thin across the ground, fragile yet unwavering. Her M40A6 hung from her shoulder, coated in dust, streaked with dried blood. Her father's dog tag tapped softly against her chest with each breath. She walked past the formation, the same Marines who had laughed at her that morning in the mess hall. Now they stood still, helmets in hand, eyes following her every step. No words, no nods, just a quiet respect heavier than any applause. Ahead, Colonel David Hensley waited. His uniform was caked with dirt, his face lined with fatigue and shame. When Riley stopped before him, the air froze. Wind moved through the flagpoles, the fabric flapping like the whispers of souls pulled from the grave. "Sergeant Monroe," Hensley said, his voice low and gravelly. "You disobeyed direct orders." Riley stood straight, rifle resting against her boot, eyes steady. "Yes, sir, I did." Silence stretched. Every soldier held their breath. No one knew what would come, punishment or recognition. Then Hensley spoke again, slower this time, his tone breaking slightly. "But you saved the entire battalion." The words fell like a stone into still water. The air held still. No one moved. The colonel, the man who had dismissed her warnings, now heavier with each beat. But it wasn't a celebration. It was gratitude, pure and wordless. They didn't look at one another. They looked only at her. The small, silent woman stands tall, her eyes calm, and her face is neither proud nor broken. Riley didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her voice was even, simple, as if she were stating a fact. "I just did what any soldier should do." She turned and walked away. The applause faded, replaced by a deep, sacred silence, no longer of disdain, but of respect. Through the dim amber light, she walked past the formation, her boots pressing into the soft sand still marked by the feet of those who had returned. She moved toward the armory, where a faint golden light glowed through the doorway. Inside, she set her rifle on the table, disassembled it piece by piece, wiping each part clean, noting every detail in her green notebook. No one saw her smile. No one heard her sigh. Only one sound echoed in that quiet room. The gentle tap of her pencil on the page as she wrote her final entry. 480 men, none left behind. Mission complete. She closed the book, resting her hand on the dog tag over her heart. A long breath escaped, soft as the evening breeze. The metal tag slipped and tapped against the table, a slight sound that seemed to echo forever. Outside, the last light of sunset faded. The American flag waved faintly in the desert wind, and the soldiers stood there still, because silence is sometimes the highest form of respect one human can give another. 2 weeks after the Battle of Sangin, Redemption Base returned to its rhythm. The concrete walls had been repainted. The burn marks on the road are covered with new sand. No more explosions, no more radios screaming. Only the wind threading through the flags and the steady sound of boots striking earth. But one thing had changed forever. No one called Riley Monroe a quota sniper anymore. No one left the table when she sat down. The same eyes that once mocked her now lowered respectfully when she walked past. Not out of fear, but because they'd seen something rare in war. The quiet humility of courage. One morning, Riley walked out to the range, same as always. Her old M40A6 gleamed, freshly polished. The wind was light. She lay down, took aim and fired. A dry, clean sound. The bullet struck the center of the target at 800 meters. A group of recruits nearby stopped talking. They stared in silence. One whispered, "Is that really her? The one they call Ghost 9? Another replied softly, almost afraid to disturb something sacred. "Yeah, that's her. The one who saved the whole battalion with a single rifle." Riley heard them but didn't turn. She simply ejected the magazine, checked the bolt, and stood. A faint smile brushed her lips, not of pride, but of peace. That evening she returned to her quarters. The small room glowed in warm yellow light, desk neat as on her first day. On the wall hung an old photograph. Her father was in uniform during the Vietnam era. His hand was resting on the shoulder of a little blonde girl. Beneath it, his worn dog tag. Riley removed it from her neck and hung it beside the photo. The metal caught the light, reflecting softly in her eyes. She whispered, barely a breath, more prayer than speech. "I kept my promise, Dad. I didn't shoot to prove anything. I shot to keep my word." Her fingers brushed the frame, and for the first time in many days she closed her eyes, letting the tears fall. Across the base, the soldiers who had survived Sangin began to tell her story. At first, only during breaks, among the usual plaque, plain, unembellished, M40A6, call sign, Ghost 9. The sniper who saved 480 Marines at Sangin Valley, Afghanistan in 2012. She didn't need a title. She only needed a target. They say that when recruits walk past, they always stop and remove their caps, because they know they're standing before a piece of history, and somewhere among the crowd, one of the men she saved sometimes returns. He rests his hand on the glass, looking at the rifle bathed in amber light, and whispers, "She never shouted. She just aimed and pulled us back from hell." True courage doesn't need recognition. It only needs the right moment to appear. Riley Monroe, Ghost 9, didn't defy orders to become a hero. She did what a soldier's conscience demanded. Leave no one behind. A pause. Then soft piano notes fade in, layered with the sound of wind. If this story touched you, share it, so that courage like hers isn't forgotten. Leave a comment, a salute, a simple semper fi for those who live by that creed. You're watching Deep Life Tales, where we tell true stories of loyalty, sacrifice, and the humanity that survives through fire. Like, share, and subscribe, not just to hear another story, but to keep the flame of compassion alive in this world, because there are heroes who don't need medals. They only need one bullet and a reason to pull the trigger.